Well, there's a little controversy going on around the hunting retriever club world in the United States, and it boils down to rule proposal changes that could include the use of plastic instead of birds. Some people are very passionate about it. Some people are worried about bird flu and trying to get out ahead of that potential issue that it continues to grow and become a concern across the country year after year. So there's a lot of mixed feelings on the subject. We're going to take it all the way down to the club level, the local club level in Region 14A. Talking about Treasure State, Five Valley, and we're going to talk to the 14A region rep, Ted Hayes. He's going to give us background on the rule proposal changes, and the former 14A field rep, Margot Ellis-Linger. She's been with the Hunting Retriever Club for a very long time, and she's going to weigh in on what she thinks about this as well. So again, there's a lot of blowback on this potential, but is it a good idea? Is it not a good idea? Would you come to an HRC hunt test if in the premium it was listed that we're using plastic and not birds? And if we have to use plastic because we can't get birds because of bird flu, that can happen. And that actually has happened at Treasure State several years ago. All right, so this is taking a deep dive into this topic. And before we go to the conversations I recorded here, let's take a look at the actual rule proposed changes. These are not into effect yet. These are proposed rule changes. And let's take a look at them for started, seasoned, and finished. All right, jumping into the computer here in the email, the official email from the Hunting Retriever Club, we have a running rules change proposal form, and each club must submit their vote to the national meeting. And there's 5 rule changes in here, but we're taking a look at the first 3, which will affect started, seasoned, and finished. And the wording is about the same, but they've added one line to each of these proposed changes for started, seasoned, and finished. And if you look down here, it says dead pheasants, pigeons, ducks, other game birds, and then in big capital letters, or simulated mallard drake, size/color specific, must be used in all hunting tests to gain championship points. And what they're basically saying is they could use plastic. And again, that is exactly the same wording that's in the started proposed changes, in the seasoned proposed changes, and in the finished proposed changes. So we're going to talk to some of our field reps and local club members that have been with HRC for a very, very long time and get their feeling on this topic. And again, it basically comes down to bird flu and being denied access to birds. And if you can't have birds, can you have a test? And again, that's just one topic that we're going to discuss here in this podcast. So settle in, take a good listen, comment down below what you think, what your opinion is on having that option to have plastic in HRC hunt tests. Would you come to an HRC hunt test if plastic was used and not birds? So again, a lot of questions to wade through in this topic. So let's jump into it.
Well, let's get going, I guess. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We only got about 7 or 8 folks here, so you guys can unmute yourself. I don't think we'll be crawling all over one another. Did everyone get the email about the rule changes? If you did not, speak up and I can forward that email to you. Ted, if you could unmute, and I would like you to start, if you would, and give us some background information on these proposed rule changes that have been sent to the clubs. Tyler, unfortunately, could not make the meeting, our role rep for 14A. So I'm hoping Ted Hayes can jump on here and give us some background information on it. I see you're still muted there, Ted.
How's that?
There you go. I can hear you, but I can't see you. Do you have a camera?
Well, I don't right now.
Okay.
Got a new computer I'm working with, guys. So
all right, no problem. So give us some of the background information on these proposed rule changes, because it seems like it just happened all of a sudden here. So something must have happened. So give us the backstory on it.
So we were supposed to kind of get all of this stuff last fall. And, and so there were some folks who thought they'd sent some stuff out, but they didn't. And so kind of happened at the national level. It's now perked down to our level. And Green Country is the club that's made these proposals go forward. And they basically bumped it up right to the national level and said, hey, why aren't we letting us show our proposal? So it kind of came around by that way. I mean, don't really want to throw anybody on the bus, but it's kind of where it's at. So we kind of missed that deadline last fall to get all these proposals in, look at, and then give time for the clubs to really, review these things and go over them. And then we need to have everything back I think April 1st or somewhere in that deadline. So that's reading this all of a sudden popped up because this one club was saying, hey, why haven't we heard anything else from the national? So it's kind of where we're at now. So, and that's reading these popped up like urgent. So.
Well, there must have been a reason for it. So are there clubs somewhere else in the country that are having problem getting birds for their hunt test?
I think I have not heard that, but I'm not, we don't talk all the time, field reps, about that. I know a couple of years ago we were kind of in that that area where Bob was lost a bunch of birds that spring where he was supplier. So I think it kind of comes and goes in different parts of the country right now. I know there's been some big outbreaks nationally, just coming the way of the egg shortages and some things like that right now. So I think there is some of those clubs that are in certain, and I guess I'm going to say in that bullseye right now that are probably concerned about that coming forward, but I haven't really heard anything yet. So
have you heard of any clubs, HRC clubs in the country that have had to cancel because they can't get birds or having
no,
issues with birds?
nope, I haven't heard any of that. Weather's been the biggest thing I've heard here lately, has been recent cancellations, but not able to get birds has not come up yet in our calls.
Okay. Well, Margot, I'd like you to chime in a little bit here too, because you're the whole reason we got HRC out in this part of the country. So I think you have a weighted investment here to chime in on this kind of thing. And because you've been at it, you're probably one of the only members in this region that have been involved in this organization for a long, long time.
I'm a fossil. So we normally would only have rule changes every other year, but in 2023, the board of directors approved the ability to submit rule changes every year. So this can kind of be the norm. The deadline for these to be issued to the clubs for review is November 1st. It's a miss. It happens. I mean, we all make mistakes, but that's why that email came through as urgent. So this was all new to me. I didn't know that we could do running rule changes every year. So I got educated fairly quickly on it. It is what it is, right? So I guess my biggest thing is we need to be aware that running rules changes need to be out to the clubs by November 1st. And that's something I would talk to Ted and have him bring to the national meeting. Like what's the process, right? Because we can't be running around with our heads on fire and our asses catching for these particular rule change. And, 3 of these are pretty significant. I've voiced my opinion about how they're written. The first 3 are just very poorly written. It's just, if a club doesn't want to go out and buy the birds, they are given carte blanche to go get plastic. Is that really what HRC is about? Now, we also had a letter come out from the founder of HRC, Omar Driscoll, vehemently getting us to not pass these rules. Do I think there's a time and a place for it? There could be, but as these are written, I don't care for them. I just don't like how they're written. It sounds like it's all about the bottom line, which it kind of is. You know, we all want to make money and have money to put back into our clubs, especially with Treasure State owning their own property. It's pretty significant to us that we, you know, break even or get a little bit of something to, you know, if we need to replace equipment or whatever, but we own property, so it's even more so for us. Some of the feedback that I've gotten is concerns about the bird flu being contagious to people and dogs. I've gotten quite a few text messages from people that were very clear that if you're worried about your dog getting bird flu, you probably shouldn't hunt with your dog because they could get bird flu while you're hunting, and so could you. So it's just, you know, it's just, I don't know. I've seen different um, reasons why people want this to pass, but I can tell you right now, the feedback that I've gotten already through the majority is that they don't want to. They don't want to pass the first three. 4 and 5 should get passed through, in my opinion. And everybody, the majority that have given me feedback on their votes, that's how they feel we should vote. But as written, it's going to be my recommendation that these do not pass. Does that mean they can't come back around next year with a different verbiage? Sure. I mean, I have some thoughts on it, but I just don't think we're there yet to go to plastic. I mean, one person put it really clear. Plastic is a game and birds are a test. So I don't know what everybody else is thinking. I mean, I've gotten a couple of people on here. I've gotten some feedback from them, but right now the tally that I've gotten from our club members is to fail the first three and pass the second two for the majority. Does that answer your question, Mike?
Yeah, it does. So how would you like to see it written? I'm just curious, what would be acceptable?
Well,
is it a hardship if you can't get birds, then you can go this, or?
I think it's a contingency plan, right? I don't think we have a contingency plan. It's either you don't get birds and you cancel the test, which we don't want to see that happen, especially with the smaller clubs out there. You know, we want, you know, some of these clubs only hold one event a year, and that's their big money maker, right? Five Valleys is one of them. That's where their income is. You know, just spitballing, I would say the first part of the rule where it talks about, you know, ducks, pheasants, chuckers, game or pigeons can be used. And I think extenuating circumstances, in extenuating circumstances such as, you know, state law that's not allowing birds to come across, there's some verbiage to that. Plastic or artificial birds can be used, but it would have to be with EC and field rep approval, because the EC is going to lean back on the field rep because they're the heartbeat of our region. They know what the hardships are that the clubs are having, and their club is probably experiencing the same thing. So if we see one club do it in a region, it's probably going to filter down to all the clubs in that region, because it could be like, let's just say Bob all of a sudden can't get birds and bring them from Ohio to Montana. For whatever reason, the state of Montana doesn't want it. That gets into the agricultural side of things. I just don't think we've seen it yet. Do I think we need a contingency? Probably it's not a bad idea, but I just don't see we're there. I don't know if we're there yet. I guess that's the biggest question I have, what people think. We're there yet.
I had a very nice long conversation with Bob Hunt today. And I talked to him at length about this topic. And I asked him, I just came out point blank saying, what are you hearing? This is a big issue. Are you going to be able to get birds? And he doesn't seem to think it's as big of an issue as
right
as what the world is making it out to be, and social media. And that's typical, right? I mean, social media can really blow things out of proportion. But so I just was curious where this whole thing got started, and if there was a concrete reason, and some of the verbiage that was in that email, and their reasoning for putting this out was they're trying to get out ahead of this potential problem. And
It's up.
You can either be reactive or you can be proactive on, on something like
Yeah.
that. But
I,
uh,
I mean, they're being proactive, but as written, it's not a very good being proactive. My other question to the group is why isn't the grand included in this?
mm,
Right? It's just a started season and finished. What about the grand?
do they make
I
rules for the grant?
well, part of our rules, part
Is
of
it?
the if you read the rules for the grand, it says that that's what you'll get for birds.
Mm.
Um, so why was that omitted? That would be my question. Obviously, for upland, you have to have a contact with a live bird, so we can't do it there. But I would want to know why didn't they include it in the grant? Why is the grant omitted from this rule change?
Yeah.
That seems kind of do for some and not for all. I don't know. Just just it's not sitting right with me for whatever reason. Um, but I would, and I don't know, Ted. This might be a question that I wish Tyler was on. I was going to ask because I think you could um you could we could talk about doing a change of how it's worded, but it can't happen now because they have to get the votes in by April 1st. And from what I'm reading on the internet, I'm gonna pretty much guess that these things are gonna die as is. But the feedback would be change your wording and have it not be like carte blanche that you just want to go out and get plastic to save the Benjamins, because that's what it appears. It's all about the bottom
I have
line.
to agree with their, because that was part of their proposal was, they were talking about, monetary gains for the club. So I guess if they had not put that in and would, like you said, worded it a little differently to have this would be our backup plan. If we can't get birds, we can maybe use plastic. But it's kind of like you and I talked too. There's different styles of plastic that will hold scent, certain styles of plastic that won't hold scent. So I think if we ever come back to have a backup plan, you can use plastic. We're going to have to go down a road where we're going to have very specific types of plastics. And there's just, a lot more to this than just saying buy plastic birds, because I think, like I said, there's different styles of plastic that will hold scent, some won't. And but I agree with you 100% on. I think this is going to come back around. I think there'll be a big topic at the national meeting, and it could come up the end of the national meeting real easy with rewritten how it's, make
Yeah,
this proposal go.
yeah,
So I really think that out here we all kind of need to get on the same page, what we're looking for, and maybe what we'd like to see going forward in case this does come up at the national meeting. But again, I have to agree with you 100%. If this thing was written a little more with food for thought and for the future and what's going on, I think this would have passed. But right now, how it's written, it to me looks like a club doesn't want to spend money on birds. And like I said, I don't want to get in the weeds, but I do know this club from some other things they've tried to submit over the years. And this club just seems to be like to hit the easy button. I guess that'd be the politically correct answer. So,
well,
So
and
this is
oh,
coming from one club?
oh yeah.
yes, this is
Oh,
one club. This is Green Country, and it's in Northeast Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And another factor, I don't know if everybody's read this really in detail. If you read that as written, you could potentially get a mixed bag at a test. You could get one plastic bird and then real birds. Uh, that is just, can you just imagine a started dog getting one plastic bird and then a real bird? What kind of a goat rope are you going to have going on there?
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we're spoiled, Mike. We take good care of our birds.
Mhm.
We typically don't have sinking birds. You know, Carrie Ping drilled it into my head how to take care of the birds, as she did everybody else. We put fans on them. We put netting on them. We, we sort through them. We get a lot out of our birds for what we get out of, and there's just some clubs that are just, they don't do it. I mean, I've seen even clubs out here that just don't do it. Either they can't do it, they're not set up to do it. We're very, very blessed to have the clubhouse that we have, that we can, you know, put fans on and keep the birds cool, and it's cool at night at our grounds. But when I've been to tests where there's birds that are full of maggots, and they're going through more birds because they just don't have the. I would rather see a club invest in a good way to keep birds, so they could recycle them better, and they'll end up making money in the long run. But maybe that's just something that needs to be worked on. I mean, I know, we can't all have those nice, cool refrigerated trucks like they have at the National.
Yeah.
But
Well, I had that conversation with our bird supplier, Bob Hunt, and he is open to the idea of purchasing freezers and freezing birds at his place.
yeah,
And then we can have that as a backup. But I mean, that is an option that we would just have to, as a regional clubs, if that's the route we want to go. I mean, to me, that would be more ideal because I don't have to kill them. If
Yep.
we can get frozen birds,
yeah, I'll take them.
4 or 5 days before and get 200 frozen birds and then hang them and thaw them out.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me would be ideal. And the other thing I did quiz him on, I said, all right, you've got a couple bird suppliers in the Midwest. How is that regulated? And he told me he gets health clearances from them when he takes those birds. And then when he houses birds at his place, south of Butte, that they come and check on them every now and then and run tests on them.
Yeah.
And he said he gets tested every now and then himself. But the issue is that this has happened to other bird farms in the country. If a goose lands on their property dead and it has bird flu, they have to kill every flipping bird
Yep.
that they have on the property. And that's where we could get pinched,
Mhm.
And clubs get pinched that if you don't have any birds, you don't have a test. So it comes back to the topic of, well, do you want to have a backup to a backup be plastic?
I think, Ted, a good conversation at the National would be, would the board of directors be okay with a club petitioning a contingency plan if in emergency situations that they could use plastic birds? It would be like a one and done, a waiver from the rule book as written, like a special permission, right? We get special permissions for different things, but it'd have to be really well documented that we've exhausted all opportunity to get birds from somewhere. And I would think for a reasonable work, I mean, what's reasonable when we're not going to pay $50 a bird, right? So that's, you got to figure out what's reasonable. So I don't know if that's something that could be brought up as something to the executive committee, that a club could petition to use plastic if we absolutely had to. I don't know if they'd allow that.
Well, I think if we, put it forward, like you just said, it'd be a special contingency plan that we would have if suppliers couldn't supply birds at a reasonable cost. And I'm even going to go down to like $30 a bird is going to be, for a lot of clubs couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
So I think something like that, to me, that would be where the EC could make that choice and say, yes, we're going to grant you permission for this test and date and time to use plastic. And I think for me, I think I could live with that. I think that would be something I think a lot of clubs could probably live with. If you had something where bird flu or supply and demand you just couldn't get birds within a reasonable regional area. Or if you did, that the price was astronomical, that here could we, document this very thoroughly.
Yep.
And then move forward with this petition to the EC and let them yay or nay. But I would think if something like that came down, I could see where the EC would say, there again, we'll give you permission to use plastic for this time and date and move forward. Have your test, knowingly that in a month from now, if you go back again and you gonna hold another test, you may have to go through the same process again. But hopefully by that time they could find a bird supplier or something like that. But I think that's a tool I think we could probably bring forward.
I think
What
that
do you-
it would have to be, it'd have to be a policy proposal, Ted, that would, so policies can be voted on, Mike, you know, automatically at the national meeting. If they're well written, you know, you can propose it to the board of directors, and everybody that's there that's got a vote can vote on amending and creating a new policy. That way if a policy is in place and we have a different executive committee come in, we have the policy in place to protect us to be able to go forward. So all future ECs have to follow that policy. Does that make sense, Ted?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Yep.
So let's open up the floor to the other folks that are on. I'm just curious, those of you that are that can speak, would you go to an HRC test that was using only plastic birds? Would you attend one? I'm just curious because that might put the nail in the coffin right there. If folks aren't willing to go to get plastic, then why bother having the discussion? Anybody want to comment on that? So I got one comment from Bill and Mary Spalding saying yes, if there were no other options. So then what do you charge? Do you charge a normal fee? Do you charge a lesser fee? Or, you know, I mean, that opens up some dilemmas for clubs, I think, too.
Honestly, I would charge a lesser fee. I don't think you could justify charging that higher fee. And honestly, our cancellation fee that we have right now covers our bird cost, and I'd waive that because there is no bird cost because we got plastic. But I would love to be able to go back and start at $40.
Yeah. But Treasure State is positioned well to handle this if it came to it, because we're running SRS and we purchased plastic, and that's what they're going to use at their SRS. But I can foresee that you're not going to know if you're going to have birds or not until a week before your event on most clubs, and that's not enough time to get enough plastic in there. You know, if you can't use your normal training bumpers, or you know, that could be an issue. I do want to emphasize to everyone here that I talked to Bob. He pretty much ensured that the birds that he gets have been tested. They come with some paperwork, and he's handling those birds left and right all the time, not just for Montana, but for Idaho, Utah, Washington State. And he's had zero issues with bird flu at the moment. Not that it's saying it won't ever happen, but I want folks to know that on the back end, you know, there are things that we're trying to make them safe. So I don't want people to freak out that we're using birds and they're going to get sick. I just don't see that happening at the moment.
Well, I know that our club the other night, we had our Zoom meeting the other night, I guess it was last week. We did agree to purchase some plastic birds for training purposes to help offset, you know, the birds that we froze last year, you know, to help make them go a little farther and everything. But so there again, like you said, you know, that'd be one of them things. All of a sudden you're tasked with not having enough plastic birds to hold the test, which, you know, there'd be no way I think you could get enough birds UPS'd or whatever to you that quickly, you know. But I think as the clubs go forward in the region, I mean, I think we all have some plastic that we train with and some things like that. But I know our clubs made a proposal last week to purchase, I believe, I can probably buy 15. So that's just a start. Maybe we can do that again next year to have a few more, but just in case something does come up, we could, I guess, be in a position to help another club out down the road somewhere if they were like, South Hills or Mountain West or Treasure State, or just, like even then, just like maybe, if Western Montana came up against a window on something too, I mean, we're all in the same sport,
Yeah.
wanting to play the same game. So I guess the more we train and prepare somewhat for the future, I guess it's a smart move, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think right now, I think it's one of them things we don't need to get into we don't need all run around, the sky's falling. I agree there. And I'm glad you talked to Bob. I talked to Bob a little too. And, he was like, I don't see any problem coming, so I think I think we got a good supplier. And I think he's in a good part of the world where doesn't really have a whole lot around him as far as any other kind of, I guess, bird business from poultry to anything like that. So he's kind of isolated where he's at. But it doesn't mean he can't get it. But I think at the same time, he's got himself pretty well set up to where he's at. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's not migratory waterfowl that's carrying this garbage. It's the little birds, and
yep, it's those
spreading that out.
those little stinky little starlings. They're the big culprit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's starlings.
Yep. I did do a little bit of research on the bird flu, and the CDC has a map out of states that actually have human bird flu cases, and there's quite a few out there, but there's like one or two in this state and two or three in that, and I think there's more in California. So I think right now we're not butting our heads against the wall trying to find solutions. But I can see that day coming where states are going to buckle down, and you may not be able to use birds. And this has been in the field trial and hunt test world. I mean, this has been the one thing that people talk about 20, 30 years ago, that they could foresee that this whole thing could end with using live birds.
Well, we got till the second weekend in June that Ted and Tyler would be going to the national meeting. Maybe the three of us, and let's get Terry involved as well. She's our PR person, Ted. Maybe we can put together a policy proposal to kind of cover our butts. I mean, not just ours, everybody's.
right.
And that way then clubs can make a cognitive decision to stock some birds if they need to, I mean, it'll be great for the Doikin and David Carrington group. Their sales will probably go right through the roof. But do I think it's coming? I do. Do I like it? No, I don't, because I don't think we can accurately evaluate a conservation tool that won't pick up a feathered bird. I mean, our training programs are pretty good. We probably would still use birds in our training program because we're also training gun dogs. But we all know what a bird and the scent of a bird can give you answers at that finish level. Whether it be going through an old fall or by a point that may have been scented, whatever. That's a finished dog. I mean, that's a dog that, I just don't, I mean, I love the SRS. I think it's a great game, and we used birds at it last year. We're using plastic this year. I think we're going to see a whole lot of different answers this year.
Yeah.
Using plastic on our grounds, because our grounds are so challenging as it is. And then you got plastic out there that has its own scent, but I don't know.
Well, and be honest with you, how many people are using ATBs in their training? Probably very little. I know I never did until I started running this SRS stuff, and I thought, well, maybe I need to invest in that, because I either used my standard bumpers or I was using real birds.
I know a lot of people are, because birds have become so expensive, they're using the ATBs or the Doikins on their water training, so that their training birds aren't getting wet. And I'm probably going to start doing that. I have a whole crap load of them, they're duct taped together because Mel has Melvinized them, but um, I'm probably gonna be using plastic for water work going forward, just because birds are so darn expensive right now.
Yeah.
I'll still do shot flyers, but
Well, and I think as a region, not only on the HRC side, but as AKC clubs too, should approach Bob and say, you know, we'd be interested in frozen birds from him.
yep. I mean, we absolutely can use. I know a lot of clubs, what they're doing is they're buying out their bird supplier at the end of the year. It's a huge investment, but they're buying out their bird supplier at the end of the year because they don't want to winter them over. Now, Bob may not have very many birds he winters over, but they're buying them and killing them and freezing them, and so they're fresh killed and they're frozen like they should be frozen. Um, and then they don't even need. They just have those birds and they get them. Now, I think there's another. Is it Northwest Game Birds? They sell frozen birds.
They sell frozen birds, yes.
Are they still in business
Yeah.
Yeah.
down in Idaho?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, he's been threatening to call it quits for 20 years now.
Yeah, I think
Every time I
that's,
get birds, he says, "Oh, I'm not going to do it again next year." And then next year, he still has birds.
yeah, that's who Tyler gets all their birds from.
No?
But and his interest, it's interesting. If you don't use all the birds, he takes them back and he gives you a credit. Where and Bob would do that too. He probably would for us, but I don't know if he does it for every club. So mainly
No.
because Bob's so close to us. He's not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Now when you're traveling to Washington and down in Utah, it's
Yeah.
hard to bring them all back. So.
Right.
Well, I know last year at the end of our test, we had a lot of, really good birds. And even on Sunday, we killed we Saturday night, we just killed all of our birds.
Mhm.
Because our plan was to freeze everything. And that's normally we try to sell those birds, but last year we made the decision to freeze those birds for club use going, forward. So, I mean, I know Corey has a freezer full. I got a freezer full. So I know if we'll have some training birds out of that, but if something did come up,
Yeah.
we would still have a lot of frozen birds to use. So, but I mean, that we just made that conscious decision last year to do that just for our club to have birds to train with in the spring moving forward to help our dogs be better dogs. So,
Yeah.
Well, that's the one fortunate thing I see on the HRC side is you can do that. I mean, you can use frozen birds. On the AKC side, it has to be extreme hardship to
Yeah.
get permission to do that.
I don't know, Mike. I mean, my other concern is like if HRC goes down this rabbit hole, I don't know what kind of door that would open up for the AKC to consider it. I mean, I don't know. I think, but getting back to these rule changes as written, my vote's going to be a no on first three. I'll pass 4 and 5, but these first three, no, not as written.
So 4 was the honor on
Four,
finish?
4 was some redundant. Correct me, Ted. It was some redundant verbiage that's in started, right?
4 was redundant verbiage and part of the policy, part in the rules about and started. And then 5 was the honor dog.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah. So what that honor dog? So this has been.
Yeah, we've been down this one.
Ted can weigh in on this, but we had several situations across the country where pro handlers, prior to running the grand, would bring their working dog to the line, and if the dog moved at all, they'd pick him up. They wouldn't let him get a retrieve. So that left that poor honor dog sitting through. If there were back-to-back pros picking up dogs, that honor dog. So they changed the verbiage to specifically say the honor dog will be excused when the working dog leaves the line. Now, leaving the line could be a handler picking up their dog and walking off. However, what was not happening is we didn't have judges making that pro that they picked up that dog move over to the honor dog and be on lead. So that we had a lot of it just was we had ended up with a lot of buy dogs. It was just a goat rope. So they wanted it really, really clear because in some people's minds, what the pros were doing was kind of like unsportsmanlike conduct because you could have a poor amateur that's sitting there with a dog that's about ready to come out of its fur. And they could do that for 4 or 5 dogs in a row. And so they wanted it really clear that the working dog needs to leave for a marked bird. It doesn't matter which one it is. It's just somebody says, well, it should say the last bird down. Well, I know a lot of times I've judged finished and the last bird down may not be that bird that dog goes for. It could go for the first one out because it was so exciting. As long as it's leaving for a retrieve, they're excused. Now, I still don't know what we're going to do if we have that pro that comes up. We haven't really, I know what Ted and I talked about what we're going to do, but.
So if the pro just picks up and doesn't even pick up a mark at all, then that honor dog didn't honor a dog
leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you handle that?
Well, that's where we get into, we're okay with that honor dog sitting through another dog if we had to, but we would probably excuse him after the second go around because he's proven he can sit for 6 birds going down, right? So they got in the weeds over it, and I just think they muddied the water by doing this rule change, but I understand why they did it because we don't see it out here. We don't have a lot of pros that come out with big dog trucks going to the grant. We just don't see it. But any of our judges that go anywhere back east, they're going to see it. And you're going to have to understand how you're going to deal with it. Unfortunately, you still could have that honor dog sitting there for a bit. So if you set up a breaking test, and honestly, it doesn't say how many birds that honor dog needs to see. So if you have a breaking test and that working dog leaves for a bird and breaks, that honor dog has watched a dog make a retrieve. He's out of there. There's nothing there that says that honor dog has to watch multiple birds. Just says it has to watch another dog make a retrieve. And he did. So, we'll just have to, I think we're going to have to eat that elephant one bite at a time, Ted. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's over with yet. I think we're still got some verbiage change on that down the road, but I know there for a while at the national meeting, they were saying to see 3 birds go down, and that didn't fly. So now it just says where a dog leaves the line for a retrieve, and that's the new verbiage they're wanting to put in. So, and like Margot said, that could be on the second bird down, the working dog breaks, and that honor dog's excused, and the working dog's gonna go sit on the honor bucket. But I do agree that out here, if we do see something like that, in our policy and rules, testing is testing, training's training. So if they start playing that game, one thing for me, it's unsportsmanlike, and you're training versus testing. So there's a couple of different ways we could have that conversation with that individual doing that. But there again, it's just one of those things. It's going to occur at finish only. So that's just where we have to really keep our heads in the game around watching. If we have some folks come in and they start playing that game, we'll just have to have a conversation with them. And if they don't like it, they can leave. That's just kind of where I'm at with it. I'm not gonna make that individual sit there with their honor dog play that game. To me, that's not right, and it's unsportsmanlike conduct. So,
and you're gonna honestly, you're gonna get. I know. We've got a couple people that have dogs that are given voice, right? Their voice, they don't want to let that dog get a retrieve if they're giving voice. And they will pick up that dog. That's going to be a 1 or 2 dog handler. We're not going to see a pro come in with a truckload of dogs that's doing it. So yeah, it could happen. It absolutely could happen. I'm not going to tell somebody, hey, you have to lower your standard at a test. If your standard is you don't want your dog barking and getting retrieved and you want to pick up your dog, that's your prerogative. But if you're going to do it on every dog, that's going to probably be an unsportsmanlike conduct thing. I don't know. We're just going to have to deal with it. I think we're painting ourselves in a corner with the way this proposal is written, unfortunately. I don't I just think we're getting in the weeds, adding extra verbiage where we may or may not even need to do it. But I can see where the majority of the country has got an issue with it. So I don't know.
So I'm curious if a pro picked up his dog in the first series that had an honor, would that dog be allowed to run the next series?
He
No.
can. Well, he can,
He can,
but he's already out.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's like,
Most
and
would
try and
be
get
anyway.
another training correction on it.
Mhm.
You know,
But-
well,
well, they could, but a pro typically will not take a finished dog back to the line after it's screwed up in the morning.
yeah.
They just, I mean, I don't, I could have a young dog that just might be having a brain fart, and I'll bring him back in the afternoon. But there's pros that just won't do it. Especially if it's disobedience, they just won't even fool with it. Some of them, they'll load up the gun, and if the dog is carrying on, they'll just take the dog off the line and excuse themselves. They won't even throw a bird. So it's I mean, if that honor dog hasn't seen a bird come out, really hasn't honored anything, so it could sit there. I mean, judges are going to have to use some common sense, I guess, and I think most of our finished judges in our region and the ones we bring in, we try to make sure they have common sense. Every now and then we get a little wonky, but
Well, I got four other folks here on the line. You guys have any questions? Jump on in because we're going to wrap this up here in a few minutes. But if you have something to share, now's the time to do it. Not hearing anything. I did get the new rule book today. Came in the mail. Yeah, and Margaret, you said that there was a bunch of things wrong with this, or typos, or things that haven't been updated, or
well, they actually have an update on the website. I just found this today, Ted. There's a section in the library that says 2025 running rule book corrections. So you got to print that. We're so professional.
Well, that's not confusing at all.
Yeah, we found a few typos, and we found a lot of typos in the PowerPoint presentation too that Ted and Tyler were working on. So like, I don't know what they're doing. Anybody that's on mute, do you know how to take yourself off mute? I guess that if you want to talk, I think you just press on the screen anywhere and the mute button will show up where you can take it off.
I guess I will at this time throw it out there that we are going to have our seminar in Butte on March 22nd. And I think it's one of those things that judges have to attend, but I really encourage handlers to come because our session down in Boise or in Twin Falls this last weekend had a lot of handlers and a lot of good questions. So it's really a good learning opportunity to it fills the void between the rule book and what you're learning in training. And the seminar really answers a lot of questions for you that you might not get reading the rule book and some things like that. So there's just a lot of other really good stuff in that seminar. So it's free. We're going to provide lunch. So that's my plug.
So that's a Five Valley event, right? That Treasure State's helping with. I'm not.
Yeah,
sure we know.
Yeah, we're commingling. I got the hotel,
Okay.
and we said we'd split the cost of lunch. So,
Sure.
And we're choosing Butte because it seems like a central location for the entire state. It just works out for everybody, barring any weather issues. But
Well, in Idaho too, and folks come up from Idaho or whatever.
yeah, I mean, we might get some Eastern Idaho folks. They couldn't make it last weekend because of weather issues, so we might get some of those folks that came up the last time we had it as well. But I know I heard Ted Ted had a lot of AKC people, and he fielded a lot of questions from one particular AKC judge that needed a lot more clarification on handling in the area of the fall, a lot more clarification for people that didn't understand, when we talk about challenging the line to the blind and that corridor of where we probably should be trying to keep our dogs, having that clarification really helped clear out a lot of people. I think, Mike, you and I and Ted, we talked about possibly doing a workshop at the grounds as well, right after the AKC test. And I think pretty much a blind running workshop is what we've talked about doing, because we have a lot of people that just struggle with blowing that whistle when handling their dog, knowing when to blow the whistle, right? So that's a whole nother topic that we can get into. But now I'm going to put a plug in for Mike. He's been doing some really cool little training Zoom things through Treasure State with diagrams and, questions and answers, and it kind of keeps the wintertime doldrums from getting the best of us. So
Yeah, I've been putting some podcasts together, and that's on my YouTube channel. And I hope to share this video too. So those of you that see this either on YouTube or on Facebook, just know that if you have questions or concerns about the topics that we covered here tonight, Margot's the point person on this for Treasure State Retriever Club. So if you want to weigh in with a vote and you want to give her your comments about these proposed rule changes, it has to be in by, would you say April?
I need them to me by March 22nd. I chose our seminar in case some other people wanted to have some questions until 0 hour. I need to get that signed ballot over to Tyler by April 1st, because he has to roll that up and out. Steven wants to know your YouTube channel.
Yeah, just search my name, dude. Mike Hurd. It might be Black Blizzard Retrievers or something like that too, but just search my name and you'll find it. And just, there are a lot of Mike Hurds on YouTube, but you'll recognize me.
It's not the guy dancing
There's a
in
few,
a Speedo. Yeah. It's not the guy dancing in a Speedo, I can tell you
yeah,
that.
right.
And then real quick, I did get a chat with Clark Kennington. He is not going to be able to make it out this year, but we're going to target next June for him to come out, and we might actually get both him and Lyle Steinman to come out and do the seminar. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. Big pie in the sky thing. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those of you who haven't gone to one, it's fantastic. And I still learn a lot. And their online thing is wonderful. I love the heck out of that.
The Hunt Test Guide.
Yeah.
They've come a long way with it. They've got videos, and now they're using an interactive whiteboard where they actually show the videos, stop it, and actually draw on that of what they're looking for in the dog. But they're advanced seminar videos. It's all done with drones. You can see the dog running. You can see just what you're trying to get out of the dog, and his corrections they make so much sense. He's just so he's changed a lot in how he's trained. It's all about making it fair to the dog and teaching. So
well, Clark's the one to ask for HRC, and especially Grand, if that's the thing you want to pursue. I mean, he's the guy to talk to.
And then another podcast that we're talking about doing is we're probably going to have one of our SRS judges come on, Tracy Stubbs, and talk about the scoring for SRS. So
yep,
not everybody.
Him and Carrie are going to come on.
Him
and
and
talk
Carrie.
to him. Yeah, so I'm hoping to have both of them, because Carrie could probably learn a thing or two as well, even though she's judged it once. But yeah, absolutely, and that should be a fun podcast to put together.
Yeah, that's going to be that should be sometime after this.
Yeah,
sometime after this weekend. So we've got some good stuff coming up at the club. So we're really, but Mike, I'm glad you brought this up, because I think there's a lot of stuff that gets talked about behind the scenes, and I'm just having Ted's input as our field rep. Just my history with HRC. I think that's just one of those things. I think, Ted is pretty much your point guy for anything at this point. But
Yeah.
if he doesn't know, he knows somebody he can contact for sure. But
Yeah, I'm
But-
looking at her.
no, stop. He sends me a text. Why do you look grumpy? And I said, I went to PT today and he kicked my butt.
Yeah.
Sore. But
All right, everybody. Thanks for jumping on the call, and I hope this sheds a little bit of light on some of these new rule proposals. Normally, we don't do this because this was just a big topic. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
See if this passes or fails or whatever. But I mean, the future is something that we've got to keep an eye on. All right. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mike.
Mike.
All right. See you guys later.
Bye.